Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. Don, welcome to Consulting Leaders. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Hi, Guillaume. Thanks for having me.
It is a pleasure. Let's jump straight into it. What sparked your shift from running a UX agency, which is quite specific, to dedicating your career to people skills training and leadership coaching?
I made a big career jump a few years ago. So I spent 15 years running my own agency. So I founded it in 2003. So yeah, I've been around for quite some time. And to be honest, I started it on a whim. I didn't really know what I was doing and somehow managed to get it going and somehow managed to make it work. And it turned into this like 15-year roller coaster ride and got the business up to about a £3 million revenue. And then we were acquired. And I left shortly afterwards. And one thing that happened after we were acquired was I realized that I'd become allergic to working for someone else. So it was never going to happen, me staying around for particularly long in the new business. So that led me to a point in my career where it was like, well, what do I do next? Right. So my agency, which is called Web Credible, is such a massive part of my identity. So, I stayed around for about a year and a half. So overall, it was about 16, 17 years I was doing that. So leaving was very difficult, and there's always the fear of what will I do next, and will I be able to make anything else work, and how might I do things? And one of the things that I learned along the way in my journey, my 15-year journey running my agency, we had about 30 people towards the end, and it's just all about people, right? Like leading a business like that, it's all it is how do we get the best out of every single person here so they can be as high performing as possible. And as a team, in terms of specific teams, and then overall as a team, how do I make that the sum of the parts equal more? How do I make this a high performing team? So I luckily just learned and realized very early on that was the key to making this business succeed. And I also realized quite early on that emotional intelligence would play such a huge part in helping to make us a group of high-performing individuals and a collective of a high-performing team. So with increased emotional intelligence, everyone can work so much better together, and performance increases. And I really started getting into that quite a lot. And I started learning a lot more about it. And after a while, I was thinking, well, why are we not learning this in schools? Why is no one teaching this stuff? And we did actually start teaching it within the agency, within my business. And one thing I found was that the greater your skills in things like leadership, emotional intelligence, resilience, the more likely you are to succeed. There's some stats around this as well, which I love quoting. There's I think it's in the Glassdoor Best Places to Work. The companies that are in that list consistently outperform the rest of the stock market every single year. And the companies with the highest employee engagement, again, consistently year after year, are shown to achieve higher profit and higher productivity. So we did loads of stuff to promote this within my agency, to get that kind of that emotional intelligence, that culture of coaching, and to really develop people's people skills and leadership skills. And then that kind of culminated in the last few years in me launching this program internally, this skills program that was all around client leadership. Because here's the thing, when it comes to working with clients, only half the battle is doing great work, right? If you only do great work, you're only 50% of the way there, because the other 50% is having your clients think that you're doing really amazing work. And they're not the same. Just doing amazing work by itself, it's not enough. And I had a team of consultants who were so passionate about the craft, who were so good at the work, but in those moments that mattered with clients, right? Day to day with clients, they were great, but in the moments that mattered, they weren't always able to step up. And so about 2 or 3 years before we sold, we launched this program, this kind of client leadership program, we called it, and we ran it every Friday morning from 9 a.m. till 9:30, and you had to be there, right? It was mandatory from everyone in the business. And you had, well, I think we had 3 reasons you were allowed not to be there. I think they were, what was it? You're sick, you're on holiday, or you're dead. That was it. That was the only 3 reasons. You could not be with a client in that time. You could not be in a pitch that the client said had to be at Friday morning. You could not be running a workshop with a client, and so on and so on. And it was hugely successful, this program. We gave everyone skills around conflict resolution and how to inspire, how to influence, how to make a really amazing first impression, how to have difficult conversations with clients so you get to a win-win outcome, how to have confidence, how to hold your own, how to adapt your communications based on, identifying what your client's communication style is, and so much more. So much more. We did loads around presentation skills as well. So every 6 weeks we did a special presentation skills session, and 3 people in the business would have to present to the whole company, 5 minutes each, and then there's like a 5-minute critique in front of the whole business, including me. Everyone took it in turns, over the course of a year to do this. And I'll tell you, off the back of that, it was pretty amazing, the level, the quality, and the consistency of our client presentations. And so this program was utterly transformational for us. And so then after we were acquired, and I realized quite soon on that I would be leaving, it was time to think about, well, what am I going to do next? And there's a real period of soul searching. This lasted for many, many months, best part of a year. I'm losing my identity here. What do I do next? And I knew that the whole emotional intelligence, high performing, was such a passion point. And this program had been so successful within the agency. I thought, you know what, I'm going to start a new business doing this, a consultancy doing this for other businesses. And that's how I shifted 5 years ago.
I love the background story. God knows why we start agencies. It is a roller coaster ride, but hey, we have fun whilst on it. So that's the most important, although it's not without its amount of stress.
Yes.
So leading to all this today, Trenton, what would you say is the problem it's solving? I think you've already alluded to it, right? Conflict resolution, how to make an amazing first impression, how to navigate a complex conversation. What is it that you solve as a problem exactly, and with what benefit, what outcome comes out of this?
Yeah, well, in terms of the program, so much of it is around that self-awareness, emotional intelligence, but also the skills, confidence, and know-how to be able to handle yourself in any particular situation. So working with clients is hard, right? Like, you have some clients where it feels very easy and it flows very well, and others where it can be tricky. And you have to have those 3 things: skills, confidence, and know-how, to know what to do in the situation. And I find it's like a virtuous circle, that once you start to develop the skills, you get a bit more confident in terms of being able to apply them, and that applying them gives you that know-how. And the more experience you have of doing it, the more your skills increase, and the virtuous circle goes up. So in terms of the program that I run nowadays, very much it's imparting those skills onto the team. Right. So, like one of the things I teach something called the PLEASE framework, which is a step-by-step process you follow using those letters PLEASE for how to get a win-win outcome with clients. Because when a client comes to you with their 17th round of amends, and you already said to them at round number 3, this is the last round, look, it's in our contract that there's no more rounds of amends, and it's still ongoing, you need to be able to handle that situation. Or when the client pushes for more scope increase, even though you've told them 3 million times that there is no more scope increase, they're still coming back and pushing for more. And here's the thing, what we often do, especially working consultancy side, a lot of people working consultancy sides are perhaps in the kind of people pleaser camp. And when a client gets quite pushy, we find it hard to say no. And here's the thing, you don't have to say no to clients. And you don't have to disagree with what it is that they're asking you to do. However, you also don't have to agree. And there's a big mind shift when you get your head around that. And you get to the idea of, like, okay, let's go into a difficult conversation with my client and let's try and get a win-win. I'm not going to make them wrong for asking for the 17th round of amends. But equally, we can't keep carrying on doing all of this unbillable time, because it doesn't work for us as a business. So how do you find a win-win? And by the way, you can't always but in really difficult conversations, some of the time you can't find that win-win. However, if you go in with the attitude of, I really want to find a win-win, then you are far more likely to get one than if you don't. And if you go into the conversation, and this is one of the big things I teach in the program, and if you can use active listening techniques to get to the nugget of what your client needs, because what they present, right, what they first say is not what they really need. It's the tip of the iceberg, right? And there are certain techniques you can use that I know as a coach and a former Samaritan, and similar techniques that counselors use that allow you to, that allow the other person to get to the key nugget, the key bit of information, because almost always what the clients tell you is not that key bit of information. And once you get to that key nugget of where they need to be, you then say to your client, okay, you're saying this, this, and this, right? This is the key nugget of what you need. Now, from our perspective, we need this outcome, whatever that might be. Set short and succinct. Now, how about we work together? Let's try and get a win-win outcome here, right? You need this, we need that. I am determined that you will get this outcome that you want. And I am equally determined that I will get this outcome that we need as a business. Will you join me in that? And we can work together. And with our determination to make sure we both win, I bet we can come up with something. And if you go in with a narrative like that with a client, everything changes, because you're no longer making them wrong and they're no longer worried that they're going to lose. But they also know that you're not willing to lose either. So, I mean, that's just one example of something that I do on the program. It's those kind of skills that if only they were taught in schools, that we would all come out of schools knowing. And it's not a case of like you trying to get one over on someone else. It's a case of like working together in a really constructive and productive way so everyone succeeds. And I'm so passionate about that, and I'm such a believer in that. And I mean, imagine the world of work if everyone was around, if everyone could do that, right? Imagine if everyone leaving school and university had those skills, right? Like no more stakeholder politics, no more petty disputes, no more grievances. The world of work would be so much better, and probably the whole world would be such a better place. So I very strongly believe in this as a core concept. And I'm very fortunate that I spend my days imparting this knowledge to people. And, you know, mostly what I do is doing that in the context of client conversations, but the stuff that I teach, you can apply to any life situation.
Wow. Okay, so we have a lot here. Scope increase. I like to, so a guest called this scope creeping, and I like it because it's, you know, it slowly gets there and you're like, yeah, sure, people pleasing, guilty as charged for sure. When you have that conversation, do you need to have as much passion as the one you just showed us here, Trenton, or how do you do that?
All you've got to do is get to the nugget. So one of the things I teach in my program is the concept of helping the other person drain the goldfish bowl. So if you're having a difficult conversation with a client or anyone really in life, just imagine their head is like a big glass goldfish bowl, right? And it's filled with water, no fish. That would be weird. But you know, goldfish bowl with water. And imagine that their mouth is a tap, right? So when they tell you what's going on, that they're talking, right? And the water's flowing out and the goldfish bowl's getting lower. You shouldn't respond until that goldfish bowl is drained. And by the way, you just sitting there listening and nodding, waiting until they finish. They won't naturally drain their goldfish bowl. You have to tease out the information to get to that nugget like I talked about before. So there are just techniques that you can use that I teach in the program, that coaches use, that counselors use. You know, if you've ever been for counseling, you'll know that you just end up talking and bearing your all because of the kind of techniques that they use. And if you use those sort of techniques with clients, you can get to the nugget. And here's the thing. Once they drain that goldfish bowl, they're thirsty. That goldfish bowl needs filling up. You can talk and you can start adding in your perspective into that goldfish bowl. But the mistake that we make so much is that we start talking too quickly. And you know what happens if you talk too quickly and put too much water in that goldfish bowl and it's not empty? It overflows. And those difficult conversations don't move towards a nice win-win outcome. So you ask, do you need passion? No, you don't need passion. You just need emotional intelligence and empathy. You need to approach conversations, difficult conversations with a client or indeed anyone, not making the other person wrong, empathizing with where they're coming from. And if you go in with that attitude, the other person picks up on that, right? If you go in being like, no, I really want you to succeed. they pick up on that. Whereas if you go into it being like, and this is what so much happens in consultancies or agencies, is teams struggling with a client. So, okay, let me call the senior person. Just get the senior person. Okay, I'll tell this client what's what. No worries. I'll get this sorted out. We won't do any more amends for free. So that senior person goes onto the call and they stand strong and they push back on the client. But that's win-lose. You're going to win as a business because no more unbillable time, but your client loses. And they're not going to like you. And they're perhaps that sort of thing chisels away at the relationship long term. And if that continually happens, those little chisels, then the next time some cold call or a cold email goes through to them, they may talk to that competitor of yours who's trying to contact them. So we think we win, but long term you lose. So all of this is just about having great emotional intelligence and having lots of empathy for the other person. They're not trying to wrong you. And there's a great example, actually. I love this story. It's there's a tribe in southern Africa called the Babemba tribe, and they got this really amazing tradition there, I guess, or way of doing things. So in the Babemba tribe, if someone commits some form of crime or misdemeanor, and what they do is they get that person and they put him or her in the middle of the group, and then everyone in the tribe surrounds them, right? So all the people in the tribe form this massive circle around this one person who's done something wrong. And well, here's what they don't do. They don't shout at them or beat them or punish them. It's nothing like that.
They beat them to death.
Yeah, no, it's the exact opposite. What they do is every single person in the tribe, and I mean every single person, takes it in turn to say what they value in that person and to acknowledge that person's positive contributions to the tribe. And they speak, you have to speak in detail, right? It's not like a quick thing. So this takes hours, right? Because it has to go around everyone in the tribe. And at the end of that, they have this big celebration and they, welcome that person back to the tribe. And at no point are they telling that person off or making them wrong. Instead, they're saying, obviously what you did isn't okay, but we want to focus on your positive intentions and your positive contributions. And if only we went into client conversations with that mindset, while still standing up for what we need, because win-win isn't the client gets what they need and we don't. It's got to be both of you. But if you go in with that attitude, like the Babemba tribe, it's game-changing.
You help with all this? I guess not the South African tribes, right? So, I mean, get inspired by them. But who is it that you help exactly, Trenton?
Well, not tribes. So I mean,
yes.
In terms of my business nowadays, Team Sterka. So I've had mostly what I do is I run the program, and I've had about 60 businesses do the program. Some brands like BT, Klarna, Shawbrook Bank, but the majority, 80% are agencies. So that's the way the business has gone. That's where the marketing that I do is for agency teams. Generally, consultancies and agencies doing about 1 to 10 million turnover. It's a night if they're too small, the program doesn't really have that much impact, and if they're too big, it's hard to make that impact happen at a scale beyond about a 10 million turnover. So I found over the years that's the sweet spot for me. So that's generally who I work with. As I said, I had up to about 30 people in my last business. In this business, it is just me. It will be just me. I won't be. I'm not planning to grow the business. And generally speaking, it's the senior team and other people within the business. Sometimes it's the whole agency who enrolls. Sometimes it's like a subsection. But however many they enroll, it's always the group going through it together, because there's a real power. If you want behavior change, it doesn't work just one person going on a training course. So to bring about behavior change, you need to make sure that you don't fall foul of the mere exposure effect or the forgetting curve. So the mere exposure effect says that we only get used to an idea when exposed to it 10 to 20 times. So a one-off, for example, learning intervention, things often don't stick because you've only been exposed to it once. You need to be exposed to something regularly. So if you're a business leader and you get so frustrated because you tell things to your team and you're like, right, here's what we're doing, gang. And then the next day it's like, did anyone even listen? Did anyone take that on board? Because here's the thing, if you're running a business, you're actually the CRO, the Chief Repeating Officer. Well, you should be, because saying it just once will never stick. So if you want behavior change, bear in mind 10 to 20 times people need to hear something before they get used to the idea. But the other thing you need to make sure of when you're doing behavior change is that you don't fall foul of the forgetting curve. And the forgetting curve was done by a German psychologist.
It's
And
amazing.
what he found, I think his name was Hermann Ebbinghaus. It's a very stereotypical German name. So I think it was Hermann Ebbinghaus came up with the forgetting curve. And it basically says that if you have a learning experience, if within the first few days or a week or so you don't have any reminders of that, of the key learning outcome, then again, like with the mirror exposure effect, it just won't stick. It won't last. And so what I do in my programs, because you enroll in a group, there's all of these kind of mechanisms inbuilt to make sure you're getting 1, 2, 3 reminders of everything you're learning straight after to make sure that it sticks. And so for the programs that I run nowadays, it's only groups are involved because I want that group to go through together and go on that journey together. And it's about behavior change, which, like I said, doesn't happen isolated by yourself. You've got to be within a group of people. And it's magic, I think. It's magic when you see that happen.
Makes the decision for you? I mean, for the clients that you're helping, because 1 to 10 million is, so I understand why the range. It's also where a lot of changes happen in the organization, like 1 to 3 millions. The CEO probably makes the decision here when it comes to culture, engagements, learning and development. 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. This is where you start having a head of HR, someone really taking on all this. So, and that's going to lead to the next question. But who is it that you're trying to get into a room with, so that they make a decision of like, Trenton, we need to learn from the tribe in South Africa. Sorry, I'm going to keep on coming back to this example because I love it. Like, we need your help here.
You're right. As the business size increases, the dynamic changes.
Right.
In terms of who I target, it's the leadership team essentially. So smaller businesses would be more the CEO and perhaps the founder if they're still around. And as the team gets larger, perhaps the managing director, if there's a CEO who's more kind of outward facing, and maybe like managing partners or client services directors. HR people are involved in the decision making, but they're not usually my primary contact. The program I run doesn't really fit with the mental model of HR professionals. Because with an HR professional, what they would do, which is, by the way, this is correct, what they do is they look at they look at everyone in the business, they look at everyone's individual learning needs and everyone's individual learning styles, and then try to work out, what each person might need if they're, doing the learning and development. It's different to my program. My program is about business impact. It's about behavior change. So whilst there's training as part of it, and there's also executive coaching, there's so much more than that. It's a behavior change program, and it's about a group of people going through an experience together, creating bonds and lifting up their skills all together to a certain level. Now, some people will be quite high in those skills already, so their uplift won't be so big, whereas others will be really huge. But the great thing with the program is they all go through that together. And they all come up to a consistent level that you can then apply across the business, because now the business has a consistent level of skills across the team. So generally, in terms of who I target, it is the kind of leadership team.
And that makes 100% sense. How do you, before we get into marketing, which is a recurring question of this show, how much of a vitamin versus a painkiller is your service, Trenton? The reason I'm asking this is we live in troubled times. I think that's true for the last 25 years, honestly. And I'm thinking I'm within the people that you would be targeting. And I'm like, sure, I see how it's about people, right? It's about who you're able to attract as a company with your culture, with your ambition, with the mission. Employee engagement is important. It's not on the top of my priority list. How do you make your target clients change that mindset and get them to realize, how do you make the business case?
It's a great question. And the vitamin versus painkiller is something I have been grappling with for the last 5 years, because the core offering of the business isn't as much of a painkiller as I'd like. So, and this is one of the biggest challenges I have in terms of the kind of sales funnel, like getting conversations going with potential clients is quite straightforward. Having them understand the problems it solves, they get it, Like, right, your team's really, really good with clients day to day. They're great at the work, but in those moments that matter, they're not necessarily, and they're missing out on upselling and potentially losing pitches, and you're getting all this unbillable time in because of scope creep and rounds of amends. So I can talk through those bits of pain, and people do get that. But here's the thing. You've been running your business for however many years before you've spoken to me, and your business is still here. And whether you do or don't sign up to the program, your business will probably stay. It will probably keep going. You'll probably be okay if you don't do my program. Now, if you do the program, you will get a more high-performing team. You will get these additional benefits, and you should, if you started the program in, say, January, you should see the ROI within that same calendar year. And I've got lots of stories of clients that have used certain techniques that they've learned in the program to win pitches, to stop unbillable time, to manage difficult clients, and so on and so on. So I tell those stories of how people have used the stuff they're learning straight away, because you use it immediately. And I talk about, at least in my agency when I ran the program, within a year, revenue from our clients went up by 35%. So that's a great metric to talk about. And obviously a true one. I talk about another metric I have is that we track people's confidence levels during the program against the learning outcomes, and on average it's a 47% increase. So we'll talk about that, but again, that doesn't tie directly back to revenue, right? Increasing revenue or reducing unbillable time, so therefore creating efficiencies. So I can talk about those things, and I do talk about those things, but ultimately vitamin versus painkiller, I think the program's like halfway between, and I haven't been able to position it as much of a painkiller as I would like it to be.
It's super interesting. So how do you market them? Because I think the target is pretty clear. It's going to be the leadership team of $1 to $10 million a year agencies and consulting firms. How do you position your messaging? How do you market? What has worked for you to attract those clients that eventually end up moving forward, or at least, are qualified leads? What has worked for you?
Yeah. So, well, one of the things I learned running my agency was for 13 years, for the first 13 years, we never did outbound new biz. We just did marketing to raise our profile. There was word of mouth, and we managed to grow the business comfortably and make a profit every year apart from 2008. So happy days. Now, then something happened in year 14. Those inbound inquiries stopped. And when I say stopped, I mean it was like there was a tap that was running and someone came along and in one swift movement just turned that tap off. And then they went and got some like kitchen pliers to just tighten that tap as much as they could, so not even one micro drop would come out of it. And that happened to me in my agency. So we're trundling along, roughly 3 million turnover, generally profitable, everything good. And then year 14, new business died. And I mean absolutely died. And it wasn't that we were losing pitches, we just weren't pitching. So cue 6 months of horror, right? Like 6 months of consecutive losses, losing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds. I kept my hair during that period. I have no idea how I kept my hair. It's not even that grey. I don't know how either of those two things happened, because it was, I was about to say awful, but I don't know. Take awful and magnify that by like 1 million and whatever that word might be. It was so just, oh God, even just talking about it just like is like PTSD. So it was horrendous, right? So I learned from that. So we pulled ourselves out of that, by the way, and turned the business around and clawed back all the losses. Within 9 months after that period, we clawed it all back because we turned it around. But what I learned from that was you can never relax when it comes to new business, right? Just because like word of mouth is working for you. Yeah, no, word of mouth might be working for you now, and it might have worked for the last few years, and all the kind of bits of the marketing profile stuff that you do. But you have to have outbound proactive in the mix. So with Team Sterka, I do all the usual marketing stuff, right? So I'm very active on LinkedIn. I run a podcast as well, which is great. I speak at lots of events. I go to lots of events as well to meet lots of people. I'm out there quite a lot and quite sociable. But I have to do the proactive stuff as well. Like it has to happen. So so I go to lots of events. I try and meet lots of people. I make sure I follow up with an email that tries to add value to them rather than just selling, right? I try to engage with people on LinkedIn. Again, try to add value to them rather than just selling. And then 4 times a year, I run a taster for my program, like a free workshop on Zoom that people dial into. So at that time, it's time to try to get people along to that. So all the people that I've met and all the people I've met recently and all the other people I've been vaguely in contact with over the years will then get invited to that taster. But then I also run a cold email outreach campaign every 3 months for the tasters. And we've got about 5,000-6,000 people in the CRM now. And email actually works. It works really well. And I think the reason it works quite well for me is I tend to send emails out that are quite different to what the standard one is. So the standard one is like a short, really snappy, whatever. Hi, Trenton, do you want to 10x your revenue? Reply now and I'll send you a free video showing you how. That's it, right? Really short, snappy, big statements. And I don't tend to do that. I tend to send emails out that are a bit more storytelling and a bit longer. But very short paragraphs, like, one, like 10 words, 10, 15 words per line. And it's basically, something like, it might be a story of someone on my program and what they did and how they got a really good outcome. Or it might be the story of my career and how I ran my agency and launched this program and how we got this uplift in revenue. And it's like, look, if that generally sounds good, join the free taster. Here's the sign up link. And I get 100, 120 people signing up to my tasters every few months, and then maybe 80 turn up. So across the year, I get 300, 350 people joining the tasters. And then everyone who signs up, I then try and engage with, try and get conversation going. I also send them a copy of my book. So I wrote a book as well about the skills that I teach. I forgot to mention that. So my book, Human Powered, came out a few years ago, and yeah, it did all right, actually. It hit bestseller status, and I've shifted about 5,000 copies now across print, Kindle, and audiobook. So great kind of bucket list thing to have done, right? Wrote a book, and I wrote it before AI, so I actually wrote it myself without any help from Claude or ChatGPT. And so yeah,
it's a real book.
Yeah, real books. That was a mission. I mean, now you could write it in 10% of the time. Again, I could use AI now to have written that book, and it would have taken me 1/10 of the time, and it would still be the same output. It would still be me and my voice, but it would help so much. But yeah, writing a book is a brilliant marketing tool, because what I find nowadays is that we're so overwhelmed with content that and people and messaging and so on that people generally will only read like something really, really short, like maybe a LinkedIn post or a book. And everything in the middle, like an article or a report, just doesn't seem to kind of like work so well. The credibility you get from being a published author is really good. So that's really helped as well with the marketing. But yeah, email outreach has worked generally very well for me and for the business. And I've managed to secure many clients simply from cold email outreach. They come along to a taster, they maybe like it. Then maybe I'll run another taster for more of the team members to check it out. And then it's like, well, that's it, because it's a product, right? It's not. I'm not like bespoking it. That's it. You've had a taster. You understand the problems that it solves, the business benefits. Would you like to sign up? And then hopefully they say yes, and we go ahead.
So there is too many golden nuggets of knowledge in here for me to dig into all of them. But I'll say this: amen to. You can't rely only on referrals. And I've talked to literally hundreds of coaches and consultants over the last few months. The sheer amount of people who are like, yeah, my business is 100% referral, which is like, that's great. It means you have a great product, great service. People talk about it. What happens though the day that it stops? And it's that back to that vitamin and like painkiller thing. It's like they don't see it as a problem, because like I've always gotten business like this. But then the day it stops, I talked yesterday.
Well, it's never been a problem for them. And if you'd asked me that for the first 12 years I was running my agency, I'd have been like, no, it's fine.
But that's the problem. And I mean, whatever, the day it stops, you lose, you go from 3.5 to 1.5 million, and you're like, oh, what happened? So super, super, super important. Cold outreach. I want to double down on this. We do cold outreach as well. Cold outreach is amazing. The traditional way of doing it, which is just like sending an email, trying to get someone into a call directly, that doesn't work anymore. First of all, anybody can claim anything on the internet. Hey, I can 10x your agency in the next 2 months, just sign for my program, which is $30,000 over 2 weeks payable in advance. That doesn't work anymore. When you call for action for something of value, like a taster, I like this actually, this is where the magic happens. And then you can nurture those people, and people won't buy immediately. Most of them won't, but you nurture them, you show them value. I like the case study emails. That's something we do as well. So lots of good stuff. It shows that you've been running an agency, Trenton. Something that I wanted to ask you since the beginning. So I think it's pretty clear how you acquire a customer. What happens once you've delivered your program? What happens then?
Yes, in the first few years, I really tried to work on follow-up products, and there were lots of things that I tried to do, and no one signed up for them. I think I got basically a 0 sign-up rate to those follow-ons. And what it made me realize was that after 6 months of working together on this big behavior change program, and it works, by the way, it really, really works, they're kind of bored of me. They're kind of over me. It's enough, Trenton. And you know what? My biggest competitor, I don't have any direct competitors. There is no one doing exactly what I do, right? That just doesn't exist. But my competitor, my competitors, I have 2 competitors. The first one is inertia, doing nothing. But the second one is every other thing that as a business leader you could do or acquire to help improve your business. So once you've done my program and you've got your team to be high performing and to have these skills and to be applying those skills with each other, but importantly also with clients, it's time to focus on the next thing. There's loads of other problems to solve, and whilst you could keep chiseling away at what I help with and make small improvements over time, you're best off doing something else. So I have now learned this. So I keep in touch with my clients, and I run a public program as well every 6 months, starting in January and July, where smaller businesses sign up with smaller cohorts, right, between 5 and 25 people. So I keep in touch with my clients and I say, look, the next public program's coming up. If you've had new joiners since we did the program, sign them up to that program if you want. And then they do that. So I get small, like minimum 3 people, because they go through it as a group. So it'll be 3, 4, 5 people at a time. So it's small amounts of revenue for me, but it's all good. And it's nice that I can keep adding value to my clients. But the thing where I've kind of ended up with this is that I have a number of partners that I work with who provide complementary services, generally to agencies as well. And what we do is we just generally try and help each other. So after my program's finished with my clients and I've learned about their business, I might say, hey, given some of the things that we've done and talked about, you should talk to Guillaume because he can do this and that might solve your problem. Or you could talk to this person. So I then try and introduce them to one of my partners, and then they can decide if they want to work with them. And my partners do the same for me. So rather than trying to think how do I stay with this client for as long as possible, it's about, well, how do I just make sure I can provide the most amount of value to this client? And that's probably not staying with them for as long as possible. There are other things for them to do. Now, there are some clients I do keep working with a bit as well, because I also do executive coaching as part of the program with senior leaders. So then some of the people I coach, I keep coaching. So that kind of continues. But again, it's a small revenue stream, which is fine. I really, that's okay. I really enjoy it. But the program is the big revenue stream. So it's just trying to look at how do I keep being able to run that.
I like that authenticity a lot, Trenton. And I think, so this is something I'm going to double down on here, because again, I talk to a lot of B2B coaches and consultants. And for sure, we all in an ideal world want to retain clients because this is where we think money is. I think being able to stay in your swim lane, and so I'm thinking of this quote from my mentor right now. My brain is a bit of a mess, but it's like, the one who cares the most about the prospect or the client wins. So if you're the one who care the most about the client and you know that they would be better served by a partner, build a relationship with those partners so that your client gets the value, you make a partner happy, and you probably get a referral fee out of this as well. And if you keep it going.
But no.
You don't have that on top of that?
No,
interesting.
I don't I think referral fees are a terrible idea because it's a tiny amount of money. It's a tiny amount of money, and I'm not interested in a referral fee in this small bit of money. I'm interested in you as a partner. If I do something to help you, I will get far more value from you trying to return the favor and you doing something to help me grow my business and to make my business succeed, rather than a little kickback. And then there's the whole ethical thing of it. And I've never been interested in referral fees, and I don't think I've ever taken one. It's much better for us to be like, look, let's help each other. I'll keep helping you, you keep helping me, and look, we're both happy.
That's a very interesting philosophy. I like it. We do kickbacks. We're pretty generous, so I'm curious to know what you mean with tiny fee, but let's discuss that off recording. Trenton, if people...
Maybe I'll change my mind after that conversation.
Who knows? That was an absolute masterclass. I love this. I love the authenticity and the passion. Where people can find out more about you, what you do, where should they go?
Oh, well, probably the same place everyone goes, which is LinkedIn. Fortunately, my
go.
name is Trenton. My name's Trenton Moss, which is quite unusual. So there's two of us on LinkedIn. There are two Trenton Mosses. So one of them is a network engineer in Salt Lake City, and the other one's me.
So to make sure, we'll put all the links in the description. Exited. Oh my God, I don't know how to pronounce this. Agency founder, supercharging client-facing business with people skills. We'll put the links in the description. Trenton, thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders.
Cool. Thank you, Guillaume.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.
Wow.